The party fled through the dense forest, the cries of the shadow stalkers fading behind them. The air grew thick with moisture, and soon the trees gave way to a vast, sprawling swamp. Mist curled over the stagnant waters, and the scent of decay clung to every breath. "This place stinks," Bucky muttered, his boots sinking slightly into the mud. "Literally." Catlin wiped sweat from her brow, gripping her holy symbol. "We don't have a choice. We need to keep moving before the Lich's forces catch up." Chad scouted ahead, his keen eyes scanning for danger. "I don't like this," he muttered. "Too quiet." Andrea stopped, her fingers twitching at her staff. "Something's watching us." A deep, guttural growl rumbled from the mist. The water trembled, ripples spreading outward. Then, with a sudden explosion of movement, a massive green dragon erupted from the swamp, its scaled hide glistening with slime, eyes glowing with malice. "Scatter!" Larry roared, diving to the side as the dragon's poisonous breath spewed toward them. Andrea conjured a shield of shimmering energy, deflecting the worst of the toxic cloud. But Chad, standing at the front, took the full brunt of it. Chad coughed violently, his eyes widening in horror as his veins darkened. He stumbled back, gasping. "No, The dragon's claws swept through the air, knocking Chad from his feet. He crashed into a twisted tree, blood splattering against the bark. "No!" Andrea shouted, her magic surging. Chad tried to stand, but his limbs trembled. The poison was eating him alive. He forced a smirk despite the agony. "Told you. My gut was right." Then, with a final shuddering breath, Chad collapsed. Rage flooded Larry's vision as he charged, his greatsword cleaving into the dragon's leg. Bucky followed, swinging his axe in a furious arc, but the creature's hide was thick, its laughter a cruel mockery of their efforts. Andrea gathered her strength, hurling a massive fireball at the beast. Flames engulfed its wings, sending it reeling back, screeching in fury. Catlin rushed to Chad, pressing her glowing hands to his wounds. But it was too late. Tears filled her eyes. "He's gone." The dragon snarled and took flight, retreating into the mist, but its mocking growl echoed through the swamp. "This one was but a taste. Vector is watching." The silence that followed was deafening. Larry knelt beside Chad's body, his fists clenched. "Damn it," he muttered. "Damn it all." Andrea placed a hand on Larry's shoulder. "We'll make them pay. For him. For everyone." Catlin whispered a quiet prayer, then gently closed Chad's eyes. With heavy hearts they buried their friend in the depths of the swamp, marking his grave with his bow, its string now silent. There was no time to grieve. The battle was far from over. The swamp seemed endless, but after hours of trudging through muck and sorrow, the party emerged into a valley where the land was greener, untouched by Vector's corruption. A stone outcrop stood ahead, and upon it a lone figure waited, the warrior who had saved them. He was clad in golden armor that gleamed even in the dimming light. His features were sharp, almost ethereal, and his eyes burned like molten gold. "You survived," he said, his voice deep and calm. Andrea stepped forward. "Who are you?" The warrior studied them. "My name is Therion. I have fought against Vector for longer than you can imagine." Larry narrowed his eyes. "Why help us?" Therion's gaze flickered toward Chad's absence, his expression grim. "Because you are needed, and because your enemy is greater than you realize." Andrea clenched her fists. "Vector won't stop until this world is his." Therion nodded. "Then we fight together." Storming the darkened pass, with Therion leading the way, the party pressed forward. Their journey took them into the darkened pass, a treacherous ravine known to be infested with bandits, wraiths, and worse. As they navigated the narrow trail, shadows flickered along the cliffs above. "We're being watched," Bucky muttered, gripping his axe. Andrea raised her staff, magic crackling at her fingertips. "Then let them come!" A hail of arrows rained down from the ledges. Bandits clad in dark leathers leapt from the rocks, their blades flashing in the dim light. Larry roared, cutting through the first attacker with a single swing. The battle erupted in chaos. Andrea's spells lit up the ravine, fire scorching the rock, while Catlin's divine power repelled the dark magic of lurking wraiths. Therion fought like a whirlwind, his golden blade slicing through foes like paper. Bucky's laughter rang through the fight. "Is that all you've got?" he bellowed, smashing two bandits aside with a mighty swing. Then a piercing shriek echoed across the pass. A shadow wraith emerged from the darkness, its form shifting like living smoke. Its red eyes locked onto Andrea as it lunged. The party pressed northward, the battle in the darkened pass leaving them bruised but victorious. The land became harsher, the rocky terrain splitting into jagged canyons with deep chasms yawning beneath their feet. The air grew colder, an eerie silence blanketing the valley ahead. "Keep your eyes open," Therion warned. "This land has been twisted by Vector's influence." Bucky grunted, adjusting the straps of his axe. "I don't like it. Feels like something's watching us." Andrea's fingers tightened around her staff. "We should move quickly." The ground trembled beneath their feet. A sudden monstrous roar erupted from below as the earth split apart, revealing a gaping chasm. From its depths, a massive, nightmarish worm exploded upwards, its flesh a sickly pale hue, its maw lined with rows of jagged teeth dripping with acid. "Move!" Larry bellowed as the creature lunged. The party scattered, barely dodging as the worm slammed into the ground, sending rock and dust flying. Bucky, however, wasn't fast enough. The worm's massive body coiled and struck with terrifying speed, its enormous jaws snapping around Bucky's torso. Bucky roared in pain as the creature lifted him off the ground, its teeth sinking deep into his flesh. Blood poured from his wounds as the party rushed to aid him. "No!" Andrea screamed, launching a fireball at the beast's face. The spell exploded against its hide, but the worm only reared back, devouring Bucky whole. A stunned silence fell over the battlefield. Larry charged with a furious roar, his great sword slicing into the worm's side, but it merely writhed and retreated, burrowing back into the abyss. "He's gone," Catlin whispered, horror in her voice. "It swallowed him whole." Andrea fell to her knees, fists clenched. "No, I won't accept that." Just as hope seemed lost, a volley of arrows rained down from the cliffs above, striking the worm as it writhed beneath the earth. Figures in green and silver armor leapt from the rocks, their bows and blades gleaming in the twilight. "Elves," Therion murmured. "We are not alone." The elves descended swiftly, their movements elegant and deadly. With practiced precision, their magic-woven arrows struck the worm, forcing it to thrash in agony. One elf, a tall warrior with silver hair and piercing emerald eyes, raised a hand. "Step aside." The air crackled with power as she whispered an incantation. A blade of pure light formed in her grip, and with a single fluid motion she drove it deep into the worm's skull. The creature shrieked, shuddering violently before finally collapsing, its lifeless body sinking into the ground. The elves turned to the stunned party. You fight against Vector, the warrior stated coldly. That makes you an ally. Andrea pushed forward. Our friend, he's inside that thing. The elven leader hesitated only a moment before nodding. Then we act quickly. Working together, they cut deep into the beast's corpse, the sickening stench of decay filling the air. Moments later, Bucky's limp body was pulled from the creature's stomach. He wasn't breathing. Catlin fell to his side, hands glowing as she began a desperate prayer. Come on, Bucky, she pleaded. Stay with us. The elves exchanged wary glances, their distrust evident. But one stepped forward, an elder draped in robes of shimmering green. I can help. With delicate movements, the elder elf placed his hands over Bucky's chest. A soft golden glow enveloped the dwarf's broken form, the warmth of ancient magic seeping into his wounds. Moments later, Bucky gasped, his eyes snapping open. He coughed, groaning as he looked around. Ugh! I feel like I got chewed up and spat out. Larry let out a breath of relief, patting Bucky on the shoulder. You were. The elves stepped back, their leader crossing her arms. You are fortunate. Few survive such an encounter. Andrea stood, still shaken. You didn't have to help us. The elf regarded her with cool eyes. No, we didn't. But anyone fighting against Vector is an ally, even if we do not trust you yet. Therion inclined after a tense silence. The elven leader nodded. We shall see. The elves provided the party with supplies and a safe place to rest for the night, but as dawn approached, it was clear their paths would soon part. The elven leader, named Therion, gave a final warning. North of here lies a dungeon, hidden deep beneath the mountains. There are whispers of an artifact inside, something powerful enough to aid you against the Vector. If you seek it, beware of the beholder. The dungeon is cursed. Andrea exchanged a glance with her companions. Then we have no choice. If there's even a chance it can help us, we have to try. Therion sighed. So be it. May the gods be with you. The elves vanished into the trees, leaving the party alone once more. Bucky stretched, his wounds still aching, but his spirit unbroken. So, a cursed dungeon, huh? Sounds like fun, Larry grunted. Let's just hope we all make it out alive. As they set off toward the haunted dungeon, the storm clouds above rumbled ominously. Their greatest challenge was yet to come. The dungeon loomed before them, its entrance a gaping maw of jagged stone set into the mountain's heart. The air was thick, humming with an unnatural energy that sent shivers down their spines. This place is wrong, Catlin murmured, gripping her holy symbol tightly. The air feels alive. Andrea nodded. Beholders don't just exist. They warp reality around them. If one sleeps within, the world in its lair will not be like our own. Larry let out a slow breath. Then we better move carefully. They entered cautiously, stepping into a cavern that twisted and stretched in impossible ways. The walls pulsed as though breathing, shadows shifting unnaturally. The floor changed underfoot, sometimes stone, sometimes a shifting mirage of landscapes that didn't belong here. A great warped presence loomed ahead, the dream of the sleeping beholder molding reality itself. Bucky frowned, his grip tightening on his axe. I don't like this. Andrea raised her hand. Quiet. Listen, the cavern whispered. Voices, some their own, some others, long since lost, echoed around them, carrying false memories, visions of things that never happened. Larry's sword suddenly felt heavy in his grip, his arms trembling as though he had aged decades. Catlin's skin flickered between youthful and skeletal, her reflection in her shield showing a hollow-eyed corpse staring back at her. Bucky took a step back, his boots sinking into what had become water, or perhaps blood, before the ground solidified again. "This is madness," he growled. "We have to wake it before it traps us in its dream." Therion, standing still as a statue, finally spoke. "If we wake it, we will have to face it." The deeper they moved, the stranger the world became. Floating islands drifted above them, statues whispered in voices they did not recognize, and entire rooms inverted so the ceiling became the floor. Andrea halted, her breathing uneven. "We are inside its dream," Larry scowled. "Then we need to wake it up before we can't tell what's real." Bucky raised his axe. "So how do we do that?" Therion pointed toward the farthest end of the cavern, where a monstrous shape hovered in eerie silence, a round, grotesque figure, its massive central eye closed, its 10 eye stalks twitching as it dreamed. "This is a mistake," Catlin whispered. "A sleeping beholder is terrifying, but an awake one." Andrea lifted her staff. "We don't have a choice." They advanced carefully. The air thickened as they neared, shifting between searing heat and bitter cold, the reality around them distorting with every breath. Then the beholder stirred. The cavern shook violently, the dream collapsing in on itself. The floating islands crashed into the ground. The whispering statues screamed, and the walls rippled like water before solidifying again. The beholder's central eye snapped open. A wave of dead silence swept across the room. Andrea's magic fizzled out. "No magic," she whispered in horror. The beholder's eye stalks swayed, some charging with deadly energy, others flickering with unknown effects. Then it spoke, its voice rattling through the air like thunder wrapped in malice. "You dare wake me?"